Nation. Thanks so much for joining us here at the Daily News. I'm Ginny Simone, coming to you from the United Nations in New York, where another round of talks is underway, all part of the ongoing process of drafting an international arms trade treaty. But the big headline today, an NRA News exclusive: Rebecca Peters has resigned. Peters has been the director of IANSA, the International Action Network on Small Arms, the leading anti-gun NGO, non-governmental organization here at the UN for 8 years. I just talked with Tom Mason with the World Forum on the Future of Sports Shooting Activities about the unexpected move by Rebecca Peters. Take a listen. Tom, as always, great to have you here, and thanks so much for being our point man once again here at the United Nations.
Thank you, Jenny.
No one expected it. I know that. Your reaction when you heard Rebecca say, I'm stepping down, I'm resigning.
Well, I was amazed. I had heard rumors about it, but I didn't believe it until it came out of her mouth that this was going to be her last speech to the United Nations.
Go ahead.
Well, and then there's all the conjecture about why this happened. And there are rumors as to some disagreement on the IANSA board, that type of thing. There's rumors as to personal reasons, so we just don't know. But I don't think we've seen the last of Rebecca Peters.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you look at it, and you look at the timing, that was, you look at how many years she's been working at this.
That's right.
8 years. Finally, she's got an administration in the White House, we all know was re-energizing everybody here on the anti-gun side, because they thought, here's our chance, got to get this treaty through, got to get it drafted, and she decides to step down. I mean, none of it seems to add up.
Well, you just don't know, but at the same time, you can't underestimate her influence. After she made her announcement, several countries, including Mexico, made statements about how much they appreciated what she had done. So that shows the influence that IANSA and she had. I think she might have gotten a little too high of a profile because it became not just IANSA, but it became Rebecca Peters.
Mm-hmm. And when there's, I guess, no word yet on who's going to replace her. I mean, whoever it is has got some pretty big shoes to fill when you look at not only the fact that she was the driving force and really the ringleader for the anti-gunners here, but she was really the point person for the UN on this issue.
She was, and they're going to take 6 months to find a new director. But they're looking ahead, and I'm sure that this will be a very important decision for them. And I would not think that there would be some second stringer would come in. I think it would probably be somebody very experienced in the international NGO movement, the international anti-gun NGO movement, which is still well financed and still there and still a challenge to all of us.
So from what you're saying, the rumors you're hearing, some of the talk was that she was too much out in front?
A little bit. The issue had become, to a certain extent, had become Rebecca Peters. Again, I'm not going to speak ill of her now that she's gone. Well, maybe she isn't quite gone, but let's assume she's gone for a while at least. But there is some rumors that she became a little too high profile.
Mm-hmm. And when you look back, I mean, at the year she's been here, and Wayne LaPierre from the NRA, debating her in England in 2004, and what a debate that was. I mean, that got headlines everywhere, and you remember her standing there saying, sorry, hey, you're gonna have to find another sport.
That's exactly right. That was her reaction to some of the points that were made, were that you just have to give up your guns. And so I think in her heart of hearts, Rebecca Peters always was a gun banner. Of course, she started out in Australia and was the energy behind the Australian gun ban. And she kind of earned her spurs there, and she went on to IANSA and was very, very successful at IANSA.
You say it's going to take 6 months, and I talk about Rebecca because if anybody had ever been here at the UN, I mean, she was always the one you saw running around the halls. She was always in and out of the meetings. And what will her absence mean for us on this side of the issue?
Well, I don't want to say it's going to give us a break, because I don't think it will. And a change in leadership on the other side is always, you could look upon it as an opportunity, but they may indeed bring in somebody with high energy, with a different style or a lower profile. So I don't think we can rest on our laurels by any means at all. IANSA is still alive and well. Don't kid yourself. And
I would think, as you said early on, Rebecca Peters is too. I mean, she may not be with IANSA, but do you think she'll still have a role here?
I don't know, but one of the things that happens is that people tend to go from NGOs to the UN itself or to some other other NGOs. So she very well could pop up in another NGO.
And I say that because has been so embedded here at the United Nations.
Very much, and I think that she was the brains of the anti-gun movement at the United Nations. She had very good rapport with diplomats, especially for instance, diplomats from Africa and from Mexico. And we know that, for instance, before the biennial meeting of states, which occurred in June, she met with the chairman of that meeting. We didn't have that opportunity, but so she was very well connected. She got all around the world. She had a huge budget.
She really did. She rallied the troops around this whole treaty movement. She really, really did.
That's right. And remember, they had 9 people in their secretariat, and that's no small thing.
No small thing because of the money that was behind her too. I mean, you look at her relationship with George Soros. And again, I have to, George Soros has always been a supporter of the United Nations and its anti-gun agenda. But his connection with Rebecca, do you see that in itself having any impact on the money that George Soros was giving?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's all a big question mark.
Yeah, maybe she'll go back. She worked for Soros at one time in one of his foundations. Maybe she'll go back to that foundation. But you can be sure that she could probably is out fundraising right now.
No, but I mean, would it affect him if she decided to get out of the UN? Do you think it would impact what he gives to the UN?
Oh, I think he would continue to support the programs.
Yeah. Now let's just sidestep again, but really, I think before I say sidestep, we can't really take it lightly that she's left. I mean, there's a big void there, isn't there?
That's
right
correct.
Now.
That's correct.
Now, when you look at the whole process here, we're here because it's been a 2-week meeting. It ends on Friday, I always kid with people what it takes to get into the United Nations. It took us 2.5 hours, today, to get our credentials. Then we get in, and all the meetings are closed anyway.
That's right. The meetings this morning are closed. They're again going to open up the meetings Wednesday afternoon, and Thursday they'll be open. But the chairman of the ATT PrepCom, they call it, the Preparatory Committee, Ambassador Roberto Martin from Argentina, decided to close the meetings to NGOs. Now, all the NGOs are very unhappy about that.
Both sides of the issue.
Both sides of the issues. And the meeting that we were particularly concerned about, that they closed to the public, it became a secret meeting, was a meeting on scope. And scope is the topic, that's the title of what's included in the Arms Trade Treaty. And we're very concerned about that. We don't want civilian arms included in this Arms Trade Treaty. And unfortunately, we weren't there to hear what they had to say about that.
And it'll be closed. And as you said, I've heard talk too that, they're hoping that by Friday they'll have some kind of outline of what this treaty would look like. What do you think?
Well, they will have an outline, and it's called the elements. And then they'll also have a statement of principles. And then I think they'll have a report when they conclude this meeting. But this is still, at best, a skeleton, but be it as a skeleton, it's a pretty scary skeleton. It's a threatening skeleton. I'm mixing my metaphors here.
No, and a good point, because we still have you still have those, and again, Rebecca was the #1 champion on this, about guns, self-defense, and the ownership of firearms. That's still very much a question as to where it's going to end up when this all comes to being.
Yeah. Now, we should say something. You got to remember that not only was the ANSA very active here,
Oxfam.
but Oxfam, Amnesty International, and then there's a coalition of anti-gun groups called Control Arms, which Ann McDonald runs, and that's still very, very much in evidence.
And again, I'm not taking away from the fact that the anti-gun movement has come to a halt by any means, but there has been an impact. And I was going to ask you, because she's gone, Rebecca's going to be gone, will this delay the process, you think, slow things down? Because I know they were saying we got to keep going because, you know what, if this is a one-term president in Obama's administration, we got a deadline we got to go after.
Well, that's a very good point. And the thing that is challenging is that there is no draft treaty yet, notwithstanding what you read on the internet.
Everybody thought there was already a treaty.
There is no draft treaty. And they have, this is a 2-week meeting. They have 2 weeks scheduled in 2011. And they also have a series of seminars scheduled to discuss this. Then in 2012, they've got a 4-week meeting scheduled to negotiate this. But this is going to be extremely hard to negotiate, aside from the thorny political questions like civilian possession. Aside from those questions, you have a lot of technical aspects of this treaty. And there are some people that say they won't be able to do it by 2012. So if I was on the other side, I would be a little worried.
All right, and you know what? Because we talked so much about Rebecca, tomorrow we'll come back and we'll take a closer look at the scope of the treaty, where things could be going, the countries that are for and against it, because I know Russia's not too happy about what's going on either.
That's correct.
All righty, so thanks so much as always.
Thank you.
Also in the news today, in New Franklin, Ohio, the voice of gun owners convinced the city council not to make any changes to the current gun laws. Earlier this month, the room was packed at the council meeting, and members heard from about 40 people who spoke out against any changes to the laws. As Jim Irvine with the Buckeye Firearms Association told us, once again, the voice of gun owners made the difference, speaking as one and in defense of their firearm freedoms.
In Franklin, two people raised an objection and wanted this anti-gun ordinance passed. And city council, I think, doesn't know a whole lot about the issue, and they're like, okay, yeah, this seems reasonable, we'll consider it. But once again, we see the grassroots to the rescue. We get tons of pro-gun people show up, really kind of overwhelm the committee and the meeting. And when faced with the facts on what's going on and where the majority of their constituents are, we see once again the city council saying, you know what, we don't want to pass this thing. We're going to leave well enough alone, and realize that a couple complainers in the city really aren't a good reason to take away everybody's rights. I guess now it's my understanding is the deal is dead and it's pulled off, and once again we have to remain cautious in case something like this comes up in the city or any place else. But it shows us this is why we all have to pay attention to what's going on, not just in Washington, but in our own states and our own communities, because these little things can crop up and really be problematic in any local district. Just one person is all it takes to raise the issue, and we as gun owners need to be able to respond and force when that does, so that we can defeat these anytime, anywhere they're brought up.
In Illinois, the Supreme Court's landmark decision overturning Chicago's handgun ban is adding up to an increase in gun sales at many gun shops. As one shop owner said, quote, "It's not like sales suddenly went through the roof. There are still restrictions and waiting periods, but we are anticipating a major increase in sales going forward. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to happen." We talked with Ted Novin of NSSF about the impact of the ruling.
We recently spoke with ABC News about what to expect in the aftermath of the McDonald's ruling, and essentially we expect that over the course of the long term, as restrictions are challenged and fall, there will be increased gun sales. Essentially, McDonald's wasn't the end, but the beginning. I think you're going to see more and more challenges within municipalities and states, whether it's CCW laws or licensing and registration, one gun a month. You're going to see challenges to all these different types of laws. And as those challenges prove successful and the laws go away, more people are going to have access to firearms. It's going to raise the level of awareness of firearms and all the great things that you can do with them, not just self-defense, which of course is so important, but involvement in the shooting sports and hunting, and more people are going to go out and buy guns.
On that note, that wraps up our show for today here from the United Nations in New York. But be sure to tune in at 9 p.m. Eastern for Cam and Company right here on NRAnews.com and Sirius XM Patriot. And we'll look for you right back here tomorrow, same place, same time for the Daily News. And we'll have the latest for you from the UN and from movement on any movement there is on the treaty and negotiations. I'm Ginny Simone. Have a great evening, everybody.